It begins in silence, not with grand gestures or dramatic epiphanies, but in the quiet, often unnoticed moments, when you look in the mirror and see a stranger staring back, when you walk into a room and shrink without anyone asking you to, when you apologize for your existence before you've even spoken a word. This is the battlefield of self-respect. Before we can even hope to command respect from the world, we must first confront the invisible war we wage within ourselves. And it is a war many are losing, quietly, unknowingly, tragically. Not because they are weak, but because no one ever told them the truth, that self-respect is not a gift, but a reclamation. A conscious, often painful decision to stand in your own presence and say, I matter, even here, even now. We live in a culture obsessed with validation. From childhood, we are taught to seek approval. Grades from teachers, affection from parents, applause from strangers, likes from the crowd. Slowly, subtly, our sense of worth becomes dependent on an external measurement. And once that happens, we no longer live for ourselves. We perform. We adapt, we mold, we diminish, until one day we cannot tell where the mask ends and the self begins. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But how can we become anything authentic if we are trained from the beginning to doubt our value?" The first step, then, is brutal honesty. We must ask ourselves, do I respect myself? Not in theory, not in public, not in moments of triumph, but in the dark, in the quiet, when no one is watching. Do I respect my voice enough to speak when I am afraid? Do I respect my body enough to rest when it is tired, to protect it from harm, to feed it not just for survival, but for care? Do I respect my story, my wounds, my dreams, enough to carry them with dignity, not shame? Self-respect is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is the simple act of standing up in your own skin and refusing to abandon yourself again. There is a quiet tragedy that unfolds in the lives of those who never learned self-respect. You see it in their eyes, a flicker of dimmed light, a habitual lowering of the gaze. You hear it in their words when they say sorry for existing, for asking, for needing. You feel it in their presence, how they make themselves small so that others can be comfortable. They carry the belief, often inherited unconsciously, that their worth must be earned by pleasing, proving, or enduring. But that belief is a lie. It is a cruel inheritance, passed down through generations of unhealed pain. To respect yourself is to break that cycle. It is to say, I will no longer betray myself for love, for safety, for validation. It is to set boundaries, not to push people away, but to finally allow yourself to stay. It is to walk away from what wounds you, even if it's all you've ever known. Especially then. Self-respect begins in rebellion, not the loud kind, not always. Sometimes it is quiet and invisible to the outside world. It looks like a single tear you allow yourself to cry. A meal you eat with presence instead of shame. A conversation where you finally say, no more. Sometimes it's choosing to rest when your inner critic demands more productivity. Sometimes it's walking out of a relationship where love has long turned to manipulation. Sometimes it's simply looking at your reflection and not flinching. These acts are not small. They are revolutionary. You are not weak for struggling to respect yourself. You are human. We were not born knowing how to love or honor ourselves, especially if no one showed us how. But the beautiful truth is this: it is never too late to learn. The moment you stop abandoning yourself is the moment you begin to heal. And from that moment on, something changes. The world feels different, not because it has changed, but because you have. You begin to speak differently. You walk taller. You stop chasing people who only see your wounds and not your worth. You begin to attract relationships, opportunities, and environments that reflect the respect you now offer to yourself. Because the world is always responding to the energy you carry. If you walk in shame, the world mirrors shame back to you. If you walk in self-hatred, you will attract people who validate your pain instead of healing it. But if you walk in self-respect, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty, the world shifts. Doors open. People listen. Not because you beg them to, but because you no longer need them to. This is the paradox of self-respect. The moment you stop needing it from others is the moment they begin to offer it to you freely. But this journey is not without pain. To respect yourself often means losing things. The relationship that thrived on your self-abandonment. The job that drained your spirit. The friends who only liked the version of you that never said no. Let them go. Self-respect costs. But the price of not having it is far greater. Because a life without self-respect is not truly a life. It is a performance, a slow disappearance, a hollow echo of what could have been. And you deserve more than that. So let this be the beginning. Let this be the chapter where you stop shrinking, where you stop apologizing, where you stop waiting for someone else to see your worth before you claim it for yourself. You are not too broken. You are not too late. You are not too much. You are enough, not because someone else says so, but because you decide it, and once you do, the world cannot help but take notice. Before we learn to disrespect ourselves, we learn to survive. No child is born doubting their worth. Every baby cries when they need something, without guilt, without hesitation. Every toddler reaches for love with open hands, certain they are deserving of it. And then, slowly, painfully, we learn. We learn that our needs can be too much, that our emotions are inconvenient, that being loved sometimes means being less of ourselves. This is where it begins. Self-abandonment is not a decision. It is a survival instinct. For many of us, it began in the small, unspoken moments, when we were punished for expressing pain, when we were praised only for being quiet, obedient, or good. We learned quickly what earned approval and what provoked withdrawal. We sensed, even before we understood, that parts of ourselves were welcome and others were not. So we adapted. We made ourselves smaller. We hid our anger. We swallowed our tears. We became whoever we needed to be to feel safe. And it worked. At first, we survived. We avoided punishment. We were praised for being easy, for being strong, for not making a fuss. But deep inside, something else was happening. We were disconnecting from ourselves. Piece by piece, we left behind the parts of us that didn't fit the mold. The loud part, the sensitive part, the wild, curious, emotional, honest parts. This is the birthplace of self-disrespect, not in rebellion, but in the quiet betrayal of our own truth. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we hide, repress, and deny, the parts we exile in order to belong. For many, the shadow begins to form in childhood, not because they are bad, but because they are smart, because they sensed that authenticity was dangerous and adaptation was necessary. But the shadow never disappears. It waits, it festers, and eventually it demands to be seen. Many adults walk through life carrying the invisible weight of their childhood wounds. They become perfectionists, not out of ambition, but fear of being unlovable if they fail. They become caretakers, not out of generosity, but because love once came only when they earned it. They fear setting boundaries, because as children, no was punished with silence or shame. We don't outgrow our coping mechanisms, we evolve them. But even as we grow, the root remains. And until we return to that root, to the origin of our disconnection, we will keep repeating the same cycles, expecting different results. We'll keep looking for people to save us, for jobs to validate us, for love to complete us. But nothing external can fill the hole left by our own abandonment. To heal, we must go back, not to blame, not to resent, but to understand. We must face the child within us, the one who learned to survive by shrinking, and tell them, you did nothing wrong. We must show them the compassion they never received. We must let them cry the tears they once had to hide. We must teach them that they no longer need to earn their worth, because healing begins where the wound began. This is not easy work. It is raw, often terrifying, but it is the only path to wholeness. You cannot respect yourself if you are still running from yourself. You cannot build a solid life on a foundation of shame. And yet, this is what many try to do. They read the books. They repeat the affirmations. They chase the promotions, the relationships, the dreams. But underneath it all, they still carry the voice that whispers, "You're not enough." And that voice is not theirs. It's inherited from a parent, a teacher, a religion, a culture. It is time to question that voice. Whose voice is it? Really? Who told you that your feelings were too much? Who taught you that love must be earned? Who convinced you that silence is strength, that sacrifice is virtue, that your needs are selfish? Until we identify the origin of these beliefs, we cannot unlearn them. And once we do, everything begins to shift. You begin to speak to yourself differently, not like a critic, but like a guardian. You begin to take your own side, not just in theory, but in action. You stop gaslighting yourself. You stop minimizing your pain. You stop performing for people who never cared to understand you. You reclaim what was once surrendered. The journey of self-respect is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It is about returning to your original self, the one who knew they were worthy of love, rest, joy, and freedom. You are not broken. You are buried, and every act of self-love is a shovel in your hand. Every boundary you set, every no you say, every time you choose rest over performance, you dig a little deeper. You uncover the self that never needed fixing, only permission to exist. This is the work. This is the beginning, because you cannot truly respect yourself until you know the story of why you stopped. And once you know that story, you can write a new one. One where you no longer abandon yourself to be loved. One where you no longer shrink to be safe. One where you are allowed to be everything you are, messy, brilliant, emotional, bold, and still be enough. Especially then. The world reflects what we believe about ourselves. You think you're unworthy. You'll find people who treat you like you're disposable. You think your voice doesn't matter. You'll stay quiet in rooms where you should speak. You think you're only lovable when you're useful. You'll exhaust yourself trying to be everything for everyone. This is not coincidence. This is projection. We do not see the world as it is. We see it as we are. Our beliefs, formed in childhood, become the lens through which we interpret every experience. And so, even as adults, we don't engage with reality directly. We engage with mirrors, people, events, environments that reflect back what we already believe to be true. When you carry shame inside you, you will look for relationships that validate it. Not consciously. No one wakes up thinking, I hope I find someone who ignores me or makes me feel invisible. But your subconscious is wired for familiarity, not happiness. If neglect or chaos was normal in your early life, you will unconsciously be drawn to it again. It feels like home. And this is how the cycle continues. We date people who can't love us fully. We stay silent when we should speak. We chase validation from those who cannot give it. We keep proving again and again that we are not enough, even when no one is asking us to. Why? Because it's easier to repeat the past than to challenge. And it's terrifying to believe that the people who raised us, who shaped our early worldview, might have been wrong. That the pain we normalized was never love. That the rules we learned to survive are now the very rules keeping us stuck. So we create masks. We become the achiever, the peacemaker, the people pleaser. The one who's always strong, always calm, always reliable. These masks serve a purpose. They protect us from rejection, from the risk of being fully seen and possibly rejected again. But masks come at a cost. When you wear a mask for too long, you begin to forget there's a face underneath. You smile when you're breaking. You help others while abandoning yourself. You say yes when everything in you screams no. And eventually, you feel empty. Not because you're weak, but because you've been starving for authenticity. The truth is, masks can only create performance, not connection. People might admire you, envy you, depend on you, but they don't know you. How could they? You've only shown them a version you thought they could accept. And if no one knows the real you, it's impossible to feel truly loved. This is the loneliness beneath the surface, the ache of being surrounded yet unseen. So how do we stop? We begin by noticing the patterns, the types of people we attract, the roles we play, the way we tolerate, things that drain us simply because we've convinced ourselves that it's normal. We ask ourselves the uncomfortable questions. Why do I always feel the need to prove myself? What am I afraid will happen if I disappoint someone? Who taught me that I had to earn my worth? We do not ask these questions to assign blame, but to reclaim power. You cannot change a pattern you're unwilling to name. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Many of us are living out inherited stories. We think we're choosing, but really we're reenacting, hoping this time it will end differently, but it won't, until we change the script. Self-respect begins with radical self-honesty. It requires looking at your life and asking, what part of this did I create by abandoning myself? That's a brutal question. It demands courage, but it also opens the door to something rare: freedom. Because once you see the pattern, you can interrupt it. You can stop seeking love from people who cannot give it. You can stop over-explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You can stop choosing silence when your truth is inconvenient. And perhaps most importantly, you can remove the mask. At first it feels terrifying, vulnerable, exposed. But then, liberating, you realize you were never too much. You were just in the wrong rooms. You realize your worth isn't measured by how little space you take up, but by how fully you exist. You realize that the love you were searching for outside must first be rebuilt inside, because no one can reflect back what you refuse to believe. Your relationships change when your beliefs about yourself change, not because people become better, but because you stop settling, you stop chasing, you stop explaining your value and start embodying it. You become a mirror too, not of your pain, but of your healing. And when you show up fully, mask off, truth on, you give others permission to do the same. You create space for real intimacy. Not performance, not power games, not projection, but presence. That's where true connection lives. But it starts with you. It starts when you stop trying to be lovable and start being real. There is a younger version of you who is still waiting to be heard. They sit quietly in the shadows of your adult life, watching, remembering, aching. They show up in your moments of overwhelm. They surface when someone raises their voice, when you're ignored, when you're rejected. They whisper, "See? Nothing has changed. We're still not safe. We're still not enough." This is your inner child, not a metaphor, not a concept. A real, living part of your psyche. The one who learned early that love could be conditional, that your feelings were too much, that your needs were inconvenient, that your job was to shrink, to smile, to stay quiet. And though you've grown up, they haven't. They're still stuck in the time where they were first wounded. And until you turn around and face them, hold them, hear them, heal them, they will keep running the show. Every time you self-abandon to keep the peace, they feel it. Every time you ignore your limits to feel worthy, they flinch. Every time you silence your truth to avoid conflict, they learn the same lesson again. I don't matter. And so adulthood becomes a repetition of childhood pain. Not because you're broken, but because no one ever taught you what to do with the hurt. You learned how to survive, how to adapt, how to perform, achieve, and please. But you didn't learn how to feel, how to grieve, how to say, what happened to me wasn't okay. That's the wound. Not just what was done to you, but what you had to do to yourself in order to survive it. To truly respect yourself, you must return to the place where you stopped, where you left yourself behind, where you split into two. The one who felt and the one who coped. The coping self got you here. The high-functioning one, the strong one, the one who knows how to fix, help, hustle. They kept you safe when no one else did. But strength isn't the same as wholeness. You are still missing something, yourself. To find yourself again, you must reparent that child. You must become the loving adult they never had. This is not about blaming your parents or caretakers. It's about understanding. Some of them did the best they could with the tools they had, and some of them didn't. But either way, their limitations became your inner voice, and now it's time to choose a new one. Speak to your younger self. Not with judgment, but with compassion. Say, "I'm sorry you were alone with that pain. I'm sorry no one taught you how to feel safe inside your own skin. I'm sorry you had to grow up so fast. But I'm here now, and I will not leave you again." Healing the inner child is not a one-time event. It's a daily practice. It's learning to pause when you're triggered and ask, "What age am I right now?" It's noticing when your reactions feel bigger than the moment. It's realizing, this isn't about the present. This is about a past that still lives in my body. And then, you choose differently. You comfort the child instead of punishing them. You listen instead of dismissing. You stay instead of abandoning. You break the cycle. This is what self-respect looks like in its most sacred form. Becoming the parent you needed, not the perfect one. The present one, the safe one, the one who doesn't force you to perform for love, the one who says, your feelings are welcome, your needs matter. You don't have to be anyone but you, and as you show up for that child, something incredible happens. They start to trust you. They stop screaming for attention through anxiety, addiction, or perfectionism. They stop sabotaging your joy because they believe it's temporary. They stop hiding, and you, the adult, become more grounded, more compassionate, more whole. You start making choices from a place of self-worth instead of fear. You stop looking for saviors because you've already rescued yourself. You stop chasing love because you've come home to it. The inner child doesn't need the world to change. They need you to change. They need you to stop repeating the patterns that kept you small, to stop settling for crumbs, to stop apologizing for your needs. They need you to say, you don't have to earn love anymore. You already are it. And when that child begins to believe it, when they feel safe, seen, and held, you change the future, not just for yourself, but for everyone you touch. Because a healed person is not someone who never breaks. It's someone who knows how to put the pieces back together with love. And it all begins when you turn inward and say, I see you. I love you. I'm not leaving again. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you swallow your truth to keep someone else comfortable, every time you push your limits just to be liked, you abandon yourself. And self-abandonment is quiet. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It disguises itself as being easygoing, low maintenance, chill. But deep down, you know the cost. There's a sick feeling in your stomach, a tightening in your chest. A voice saying, this doesn't feel right, but you do it anyway, because you're afraid of being too much or not enough. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that being loved meant disappearing, that your boundaries were obstacles, that your feelings were problems, that your authenticity was a threat. So you began the long, painful pattern of trading yourself for belonging. But here's the truth. You cannot belong if you are not being yourself. What you're calling connection is often just performance. What you're calling peace is just suppressed resentment. What you're calling love is often just fear of abandonment. Self-abandonment is a learned response. You didn't choose it. You adapted to survive. Maybe you were punished for having emotions. Maybe your needs were mocked or ignored. Maybe you were taught that good people never say no. So you became what the world wanted, at the expense of who you were. But there's a cost to that kind of survival, a quiet, aching grief. Because no matter how much approval you earn, it never feels like enough. Because you're not enough for yourself. Let that land. Until you stop abandoning yourself. Nothing outside of you will feel safe. No relationship will feel stable. No success will feel fulfilling. No praise will reach your core. Because your deepest need isn't to be accepted by others. It's to be accepted by you. You cannot respect yourself while betraying yourself. So, how do you stop? It starts with noticing the moments when you shrink, the hesitation before you speak, the smile that masks your disappointment, the over-explaining, the apologizing for existing. Then you gently ask, what am I afraid will happen if I stay with myself right now? Often, the answer is, they'll leave, they'll be angry, I'll lose them. But the real question is, what will you lose if you keep leaving yourself? That question is the turning point, because the truth is, every time you abandon yourself to keep someone, you lose both. You lose them and you. Because what they're connecting to isn't you. It's the version you created to be loved. And that version is exhausted. She's tired of performing. He's tired of pretending. They're tired of guessing what's safe to say. And you're ready now for something real. Real love. Real boundaries. Real self-respect. That means learning to disappoint others without betraying yourself. It means letting people be uncomfortable with your no. It means saying, this is who I am. This is what I need. This is what I will no longer tolerate. It's terrifying at first. You will tremble. You will doubt. You will feel like you're doing something wrong. But you're not. You're doing something new. Something sacred. You are coming home to yourself. You'll notice the shift in small ways. The first time you say no and survive it. The first time someone leaves and you don't chase them. The first time you honor a gut feeling instead of overriding it. And slowly, the world adjusts to the new you. People who only loved your compliance will fall away. But people who love your truth will arrive. You'll begin to attract relationships where you don't have to hide, where you don't have to earn love, because you already are love, where you are allowed to take up space and still be safe. But most importantly, you will trust yourself. And that changes everything. Because the person you spend the most time with is you. And you deserve a relationship that is rooted in honesty, respect, and safety. So make a promise. Right here, right now, I will not leave myself again. No matter who leaves, I will stay. No matter how hard it gets, I will not abandon the person I've fought so hard to become. Because you are no longer a child begging to be chosen. You are an adult who gets to choose, and you choose you. And that choice, that's where your power begins. For too long, you've been shrinking your voice, shrinking your needs, shrinking your presence. You walk into rooms and try not to be too much. You speak only when it feels safe. You overthink every word, every gesture, just to keep the peace. You've become a master at disappearing, even when you're physically there. Why? Because somewhere deep down, you were taught that existing fully was a burden, that your light was too bright, that your emotions were too loud, that your needs were inconvenient. So you learned to apologize for who you are. Sorry for talking too much. Sorry for asking. Sorry for needing help. Sorry for being me. But here's the truth. You were never too much. They were simply too small to hold you, and that's not your fault. You were shaped by environments that made you believe love was conditional, that taking up space was selfish, that being proud of yourself was arrogance, that advocating for your needs made you difficult. But what if none of that is true? What if taking up space is not selfish, but sacred? What if your voice is needed? Your truth is valuable. Your presence is a gift. You do not have to earn your place in the world. You already belong, simply because you exist. You don't need to justify your dreams. You don't need permission to be seen. You don't have to fit yourself into someone else's mold just to be accepted. You are allowed to speak loudly, laugh fully, cry openly, set boundaries, be messy, be real, be proud of who you are becoming. And if that makes people uncomfortable, let it. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Their inability to see your worth does not diminish it. Their rejection is not a reflection of your value. Let people misunderstand you. Let them mislabel you. Let them walk away if they need to. You are not here to be digestible. You are here to be whole. You were not created to live in the shadows of others. You were not born to tiptoe through life. You were not made to silence yourself for someone else's comfort. You were made to take up space with your truth, your story, your fire. And yes, some will say you've changed. Let them, because growth often looks like rebellion to those who benefit from your silence. Let this chapter of your life be the one where you stop asking for permission and start claiming your place. You are not too loud. You are passionate. You are not too emotional. You are human. You are not too sensitive. You are aware. You are not too much. You are exactly right. Take up space. Sit with your back straight. Walk with purpose. Speak your truth without shrinking. It down, own your presence. Let people feel you when you enter a room. Let your authenticity ripple through every interaction. Let your self-respect be non-negotiable. And when doubt creeps in, when that old voice says, "Who do you think you are?" you answer clearly, "I am someone who belongs here. I am someone who matters. I am someone who no longer apologizes for being real." Because the world doesn't need another version of you that's diluted, polished, or edited. It needs you. Fully, boldly, unapologetically. So let this be the moment you stop shrinking. Let this be the moment you step fully into your life. You deserve to take up space. And anyone who tries to make you feel otherwise doesn't deserve a front row seat to your story. Take a moment. Breathe. Now ask yourself quietly, who did I need when I was hurting? Maybe you needed someone to hold you without asking for explanations. Maybe you needed someone to tell you, you're not broken. Maybe you needed someone who didn't try to fix you, just stayed. Maybe you needed someone who looked you in the eyes and said, I see you, and I'm not going anywhere. You needed safety. You needed love that didn't come with strings. You needed to be believed, not doubted. You needed gentleness, not lectures. Presence, not judgment. Warmth, not perfection. But maybe you didn't get that. Maybe what you got was silence, or punishment, or confusion. Maybe what you got was being told to be strong when all you needed was to feel. Maybe what you got was a world that said, you're too much, when you were just trying to survive. And that absence, it shaped you. It made you quiet. It made you fierce. It made you question your worth. It made you build walls so high even you forgot what's inside. But here's the healing truth. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to carry their absence forever. You don't have to keep waiting for someone else to give you what they couldn't, because now you get to become the person you needed. You get to give yourself the love you were denied. You get to speak the words you long to hear. You get to protect your heart the way no one protected it. You get to say to yourself, I will never abandon you again. You become the safe space. You become the home. You become the soft place to land. You become the one who stays. And no, it won't always be easy. There will be days your inner child screams, where were they when I needed them? There will be nights your heart aches for the version of you that never got to feel safe. But on those days, hold yourself tighter. Not because you're pretending it didn't hurt, but because now you finally can say, you didn't deserve that, and I will never let you go through it alone again. You don't heal by pretending the pain didn't happen. You heal by becoming someone who can witness the pain with compassion. You become the one who listens to your emotions without dismissing them. You become the one who validates your needs without shame. You become the one who says, I'm proud of you, not because of what you did, but because you're still here. Still breathing, still trying, still choosing to believe that healing is possible, and it is. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering differently. It means saying, that chapter hurt, but it no longer defines me. Because you are writing a new story now. A story where you are not just surviving, you are choosing. Choosing joy, choosing peace, choosing softness, choosing boundaries, choosing you. The world may never fully understand how hard it was for you to keep going, but you do. And that matters more than anything. So when you look in the mirror from now on, I want you to say this. I am proud of who I'm becoming, because you are no longer repeating the cycle. You are rewriting it. You are becoming the person your younger self prayed for. You are becoming the voice your wounded self needed to hear. You are becoming the love, the safety, the kindness, the permission. And in doing that, you're not just healing your past. You're shaping your future. One where you are whole, one where you are free, one where you finally, deeply, and undeniably respect yourself. And from that self-respect will rise everything you've been waiting for. Peace, power, joy, belonging. Love that feels like home, not because someone else gave it to you, but because you finally gave it to yourself. This is the beginning. This is your return. This is your liberation. Welcome home.